As we approach Juneteenth, we wanted to recognize people in our community who have fought for change in Lansing and mid-Michigan. And today we're talking about those who broke barriers in education.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about the legacy of Dr. Olivia Letts. 70 years ago, Brown v. Board of Ed was a landmark case that called for desegregation in schools nationally. But that battle was also being fought right here in our backyard. So I spoke to people who knew Dr. Letts personally and how her work inspired them. So let's check it out.
This letter is dated March 9th, 1951, and it's directed to Miss Davis, which was my mother's maiden name. Dear Miss Davis, we were very glad to receive your application for a position in Lansing. However, I think I should explain to you that the Lansing schools do not generally employ people of your race for teaching positions.
73 years later, Eileen Letts reflects on a rejection letter mailed to her mother.
And we are in the process now of trying to find an upstanding person to be first one employed. However, at the present time, it would not be possible for us to do so.
That upstanding person eventually was her mother. She was a teacher in Chicago, but love brought her to Lansing.
The quick story on that is that my mother met my father at a wedding in Chicago, and they decided they fell in love and they were going to get married. And my mother, being, as I said, the strong person that she was at the time even, said, I will not marry you if I don't have a job. He wanted her to move to Lansing and marry him, but she told him, quote, love will not put one piece of bread on one's table, close quote. So my father then advocated with some other people in Lansing and worked with a lot of different people and advocated for her to be a teacher here. And she became the first black teacher in the Lansing School District in 1951.
From school teacher to principal to director of elementary education, Dr. Letts worked her way up in the Lansing School District. She opened doors for black educators and worked to put an end to school segregation. But it didn't come without struggle.
You don't start a job as the only black person and not have a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome.
As a teacher under Principal Letts, Lansing education advocate Barbara Roberts Mason discusses the challenges educators faced in the 1960s.
I had been in so many schools in Lansing that I knew the differences in the schools, and I could tell how the disparate treatment of kids in the schools in the black neighborhoods. They were different. They were not as clean. The curriculum in many instances wasn't as good. They didn't have as much in terms of equipment as some of the other schools that I had been into, and I became very angry about that.
But it didn't stop their hope for change.
Well, you don't run from things that are difficult. You stay and you manage them, you handle them. She cared about them to the point that she cared about their parents, because she knew that some of them were coming to school without breakfast, without lunch. She cared about them because she knew that some of their parents couldn't read. And she wanted to make sure that if their children couldn't read, why can't they read? Well, their parents can't read. So how do we bring parents in and help parents to be able to help their children more? That's the kind of a person Olivia was. You don't just deal with one little thing. It's a whole composite of issues that make you what you are, make me what I am, and make the school what it happens to be.
Barbara tells me that Olivia set a standard of respect for all teachers and students.
Olivia becoming the first principal was the best thing that could have happened to Lansing, because the kids whom she taught were strengthened by her. The teachers with whom she worked were strengthened by her, and that led to the next generation.
Daniel Bogan III has worked in Sexton High School since 1995 and worked his way up the ladder.
It was always my goal to go to college as of 8th grade, and having people like Mr. Letts and his wife to be around to inspire you to do those things in our community, that was very powerful.
And he's continuing the work that Dr. Letts started.
To always fight for your students to get the best that your school can give them, and that your district can give them, and that the state can give them.
So 73 years later, her legacy continues.
Olivia built a foundation. I stood on her foundation Her legacy is having built a foundation for adults, for children, for youth, for the community, for the future. And it still goes on. It's still multiplying. It's still continuing.
And because of her, they can.
If we focus on making things better as human beings, we'll continue to strive and build a strong educational system here in Lansing and in our country.
I think she already has established her legacy.
And you can celebrate Juneteenth with us by turning into our hour-long special, Juneteenth Unity in the Community, right here on WILX at 5 p.m. this Wednesday. Hear the stories of Dr. Olivia Letts and others who have made a true impact on Mid-Michigan and are working to make change abroad.